Hello and assalamu alaikum folks, welcome back. This is day 2 of the create your own greeting card challenge, and in today's video we are going to be doing a document overview as well as setting up the background and the design before we go ahead and place the text in tomorrow's class. So it goes without saying, but if you happen to miss day 1's lesson, please go back and check that out because I go over all the requirements that we basically need to have in place before we start designing the greeting card. So once you have the software all installed, we are going to go ahead and get started here. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to download the template for the specific sized card that you're going to be working with. In this challenge, we're going to be working with the A7 size. So what you're going to do is you're going to right click on this button over here and you're going to go to save link as, and you will save that on your hard drive. Now I'm not going to do that because I already have it saved, and you're also going to do the same with the designs and background file. So right click, save link as, and then save it on your hard drive. Once you have that, go to the folder where you saved your documents, and you're going to go ahead and hit open the a7.ai file. So this is the template for the A7 sized greeting card. Now the artboard here, or the entire document that you see over here, is essentially our standard letter size paper. Okay, over here it's in a landscape format, so essentially the entire document here is 11 inches wide and 8.5 inches tall. Okay, now first things first, if you just install Illustrator, and a lot of this may seem a little new to you, again, my assumption over here is that you're a complete beginner. So over here on the top drop down menu over here, the top right hand side, this may be on Essentials. Just click on that and go to Layout. That is, in my opinion, the most user-friendly way of working with something like a greeting card. So let's talk about the layers over here. So again, I have this split into the right and left side. So this template over here could be used both for the outside of the card as well as the inside of the card. Obviously, if this is the outside of the card, then this is the front. The right hand side is the front and the left hand side is the back. And if you're using this template to design the interior of the card, then this is obviously the right side and this is the left side. Okay, so let's talk about the different layers that I have set over here, just so it's easier for you to navigate once we are in day 3 and day 4 and all of your designs are sort of lining up the proper way. By the way, if you don't see the layers tab over here, it should be somewhere on near the bottom right hand side. If you don't see it, go to Window and click on layers and you should be able to see the layers tab. Over here you'll see that there are 3 layers that have a lock icon. Okay, so this is the left side outline, so essentially this rectangle over here. If I click this eye icon over here and make it invisible, you'll see what rectangle this essentially is. Okay, same thing with the right side outline. It is essentially this rectangle over here. And if I make both of these invisible, then these are the corners. Okay, so these are the 3 layers that are going to remain near the top over here. Okay, and the reason why these should be near the top is because, well, firstly, these are all in order. So what you see on top over here is essentially the top layer on our document. And whatever you see at the bottom over here, and you see that I have set the background layer at the back because it should be at the bottom, right? So if you want to be working with your greeting card document, you do want to keep an eye on the outline and make sure that your design really sits the proper way. So that's why I have these layers near the top. Okay. Now I also have the background layer, as I mentioned. We're going to be working with the background and the design layer today. And then in day 3, which is tomorrow, we are going to be working with the text layer. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and start placing our background in here. So the other file that we downloaded is the vector designs file. Let's open that. So over here, essentially, I am sharing with you a few sample mandalas and borders, as well as a few background designs. Okay, now just a couple of notes here. Firstly, everything that you see here, these are all vector images. Now, vector images are inherently different from a regular JPEG image in that a regular JPEG image is based on a specific arrangement of pixels. So you cannot enlarge a regular JPEG beyond the original resolution. Otherwise, you're going to see a pixelated image. Now, with something like this, now if I zoom in, so by the way, to zoom in, what you can do is you can hit the Alt key on your keyboard or the Option key on your Mac, and then using your mouse, you can scroll up and down, and that essentially zooms in. So going back to my point, since this is a vector image, you see that I don't lose any resolution if I zoom in to this specific image. In fact, if I take this, so first if I select it, okay, if I select this and I move it, I'm going to zoom out. And if I enlarge this, you'll notice that this does not lose any resolution whatsoever. Okay, again, this is because this is a vector image. So that's the first note. The second note that I want to make here is that everything that is not a mandala, these circular designs here, so basically everything from here to over here, these are all tiled designs, which means you can tessellate them and they would fit in or they would mesh in seamlessly. They are all tiles. So for example, if I take this little square over here, okay, so just another little quick tip here. So if I take this shape and I move it, obviously this square would move. Now, if I don't really want to move the original and just play around with a duplicate, then I can hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC, and after holding it down and then I drag this, now I'm basically dragging a copy of this square. So now I can experiment with this and do whatever I want and then just delete it at the end. So let's make it a little bit larger. Okay, and since this is a vector image, this does not lose any resolution. By the way, if you notice that when you are resizing these shapes, you know, they are not locked. So you can essentially skew them as well. To make sure that these are locked into proportion, just hold down the Shift key and then resize it. That way you are going to keep the proportion of the actual shape here. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this square over one more time. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure that this is aligned horizontally so it doesn't move up and down. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold the Option key on the keyboard or the Alt key. And again, this is the key on the keyboard for duplicating. Okay, so I'm gonna hold down the Option key. Then I'm gonna click with my mouse. So I'm gonna hold down with my mouse. And then to make sure that this is aligned and doesn't move up and down, I'm gonna hold the Shift key. Okay, so Option, mouse, and then Shift. And now when I drag this over, and even if my mouse goes a little bit higher and lower, you'll notice that this doesn't shift vertically. Okay, so this makes your job a lot easier. Now I'm just gonna let go of my mouse and I have a perfect duplicate of the square. And now if I just click this and hold the Shift key to make sure that it's still aligned, I'm gonna bring it back, connect it, and you will notice that these two tiles mesh in seamlessly. And that's really the case with all of the shapes that you see over here. So you can be creative with these and really pick anything that you want to design your background for the card. Okay, another thing that I can show you is how you can change the color in this image over here. So let's just say that I am not a huge fan of this color over here. Okay, I want to change this specific color. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, well, let's deselect everything. So I'm just going to click outside. Okay, and then I am going to click on the direct selection tool. We have two arrows over here in Adobe Illustrator. We have the regular selection tool, and then we have a direct selection tool. Essentially, the selection tool or the regular selection tool is to select the entire group of shapes, whereas the direct selection tool is to really pinpoint any specific shape within a group of shapes. So that's what I'm going to be using here. I'm going to use the direct selection tool. I'm going to hit this shape here because that's the color that I want to replace. And once I have that selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to select, and then I'm going to go to same, and then I'm going to go to fill color. And essentially what this does is that it selects everything or every shape out here, which is that specific color. Once you have that, now it's just a matter of going to the swatches tab over here and just changing the color to whatever you'd like it to be. Now again, if you don't see swatches over here, go to window and look for swatches and turn it on. Okay, so once you have that selected, say that I wanted to replace that color with red. If I want to change it to blue, change this to blue. If I want to change it to some sort of a gradient, it changes to a gradient. Okay, so you can have a lot of fun with this, really experiment with this. And that's really the whole purpose of this challenge, is to make sure that you design something that is unique to your own creativity. Okay, so that's just a quick tutorial of how to manipulate any specific shapes over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set up a background on our template that we're going to be using over here. Now, keep in mind that we are going to be cutting around this outline over here. The background should go outside the outline a little bit. And the reason for that is if I take my background and align it to the edge of the card, you know, if I'm cutting this at the end and I'm just slightly off, then I am going to be exposing a little bit of the white edges. Whereas if I make sure that the background goes a little bit beyond the outline over here, then I have some room for error and my edges wouldn't be exposed in that scenario. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to copy one of these backgrounds. So using the regular selection tool, okay, I'm going to select this and I'm going to copy it. A couple of ways to copy. Either you can hit Command C on your keyboard on a Mac, or Control C on a PC, or you can go to Edit and just click on copy. You can do it this way, and then you go to your template here. You can go Command V or Control V, or you can go to Edit and click paste. Okay, they all do the same thing. So now I'm going to hold the Shift key to make sure that this doesn't skew either way, and I'm just going to make it a little bit larger. Again, this is just a background layer, so we don't have to be totally precise with this. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and center this on this page as well. Now, the way to center this is you can either drag it and look for, you know, those little intersection points. That's the harder way to do it. The easiest way is to go to this Align tab over here on the right hand side. Now, if you don't see the Align tab, again, go to Window and make sure that Align is turned on. Now, once you have the Align tab turned on, you're just going to go to this button over here, which says Horizontal Align. So I'm going to hit that, and that basically centers the background on this template here horizontally, and I can do the same thing vertically as well. So I'm going to hit Vertical Alignment, and now this is vertically aligned as well. So I think this is a pretty good place for me to put the background. Okay, so if I cut by the edges, I'm not exposing myself to any white areas. Okay, so I have a fair bit of bleed. So now I also want to make sure that this background here is on the background layer. Now, how do I know if any shape is in any one of these layers here? Basically, you can tell by where this box is. So right now you see this blue box. It's beside the background tab over here. Now, if I do want to transfer this to a separate layer or a different layer, I can just take this box, drag it, and now essentially this background is in the text layer. Okay, now if you notice, if I drag it to any one of these, it's not going to work because these are locked. Okay, I don't want to be moving these around or messing with these layers, so that's why you can't really drag anything in these layers. Anyways, we'll go ahead and bring that back to the background layer. Okay, so I'm not done with the background. I'm going to add a little bit something else here as well. So going back to the initial vector design document here, I'm going to copy this and I am going to paste it here. Now, my intention here is to have this placed in such a way that the end of the petals do not go beyond the outline. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure that this is vertically aligned. Okay, I'm going to hit the vertical line button over here. Now, if I just hold the shift key and I resize this, you see I'm basically just resizing from the corner over here, right? So that's one way to do it, and it requires, realignment every single time. The other way to do this is basically holding the shift key as well as the option key. So that's for a Mac. So on a PC, the shift key and the alt key. So if I hold those two down and then I change this, you'll see that the resize of this image essentially originates from the center of this image. So this way I can really expand this and make sure that it ends up near the edge, not right at the edge, right short of it. So I think this is a pretty good spot. I'm going to let go. I think that's a pretty good place for this. Okay, now I'm going to take this, drag it a little bit towards the left here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this again. So Option or Alt key, then click, then the Shift key to make sure that this is horizontally aligned. And then I'm going to make a duplicate. I'm going to go in and make sure that these connect seamlessly, holding down the Shift key. Okay, so there we are. This is a tessellated image. It can basically go on forever. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to click both of these images, the Vine art over here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I am going to group these together. I want this to be one group of shapes. Okay, because I can't, or it's just a little inconvenient for me to keep selecting both of them together. So the way to group these is basically hit Command G on a Mac or Control G on a PC. Okay, and that essentially makes this into one group of shapes. So if I click outside and now if I click anywhere on that shape, you'll see that it selects everything. Now, if you ever want to go back and break it up again, you basically hit Command Shift G, okay, or Alt Shift G on a PC, and you break it up again. So now these are two different shapes again. Okay, so let's go back, let's group it together. Now, once these are grouped together, now I'm going to center this on the document as well. Okay, just because I like some symmetry on my greeting card here. Now I'm also going to make sure that this Vine art design here is a little bit graded back. Okay, so the opacity, I'm going to change it, bring it all the way down to somewhere around, say 25 or say 26. Okay, so that makes this Vine design really subtle and really makes it part of the background really. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little bit lighter actually. I think I'm going to go with something like maybe 17. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to stick to that. Let's go ahead and leave the background as is. And once you are content with the background and now you're ready to move on to the next stage, you basically going to go to the layer section over here and you will hit the lock icon over here. That'll make sure that you don't play around with this. So now when we work with the design and the text, we're not touching and moving around the background layer accidentally. Okay, this is really now set into place. Okay, now another thing that I wanted to mention over here is that a lot of greeting cards, or most of them actually, only have a design in the front and not the back. Now, if you do want to do it that way, it's totally up to you. Just make sure that your alignment is from this center point over here and on the right hand side, and then you can leave the left hand side blank over here. Okay, nothing complicated about that at all. So here we have the background for our greeting card all set. Now I'm going to go back to the vector design sheet here, and I am going to select one of these mandalas. Okay, let's go with this one over here. So again, I'm going to hit Command C or copy it, go back over here, and I'm going to paste it here, Command V, Okay, so every time you get this message, it just means that it's trying to paste the shape in one of these locked layers. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit no, and then the reason is because I didn't select the proper layer. So I'm gonna go to design, that's where I want this to be pasted. I'm gonna hit Command V, and there we have it. So now as the box is beside the design layer over here, it tells me that this design is in its proper layer. Okay, so I'm going to resize this a little bit. Okay, now I can vertically align this. Okay, now how do I make sure that this shape over here is horizontally aligned within this box over here? Because if I click this, this essentially takes this shape right into the middle of this document, which means that half of it is going to be on the right side and half of it would be on the left side, which by the way would make for a pretty cool design, but that's not what I'm trying to do over here. I'm trying to make sure that this is in the middle of the front part of the document. So this is what we're gonna do. Okay, first I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. I think it's still a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna hold the Shift and Option key, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I am going to unlock the RS outline layer over here. The reason is because I will be needing to select it very soon. Okay, so this part may sound a little complicated, so please pay attention over here. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the design over here that I'm trying to center. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to select this rectangle over here because this is the rectangle that I am trying to align it in relativity to, right? So I'm going to select both of these things, and then I'm going to select this rectangle again. When I do that, you'll notice that this creates a thicker outline outside this rectangle, essentially indicating that this is now the selection. Okay, so to verify that, if you go on this section over here and you see this section here, if you click this little drop down menu, it'll say align to key object. Okay, and that's exactly what we are trying to do. So once you have it this way, again, you click the design first, then you click the outline that you're centering it to, and then you click that outline again for a third time until this outline is thickened a little bit. Okay, once that's done, you can hit the horizontal align button, and now you'll notice that this design aligns in the center of this shape over here. Okay, I can also vertically align it, but I think it's already vertically aligned. So that's it. That's how we would center this shape in the center of this rectangle over here. Once you're done that, you're going to go ahead and lock this layer again. Okay, we don't want to be playing around with the positioning of this rectangle. Okay, so as I mentioned, you can be really creative with this, really take any one of these shapes and change their color to whatever you would like it to be. So let's try that one more time. Select same fill color and say I want to do a yellow over here for whatever reason. I can do that. Okay, so play around with this and be as creative as possible. Try to create something that is unique and to your personality. So this is it for day 2's lesson, folks. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful. Until tomorrow, folks, take care and assalamu alaikum.